1,200 Auckland homeowners are being forced to abandon their properties, not because they can't afford the mortgage, not because of interest rates, but because Auckland Council and the government have determined their homes face an intolerable risk to life from future storms. Over 600 buyouts have already been completed. More than 60 homes in Muriwai alone have been demolished or relocated, and properties that were valued at over $2 million are now worth just $50,000, the value of reserve land with limited use. This is the largest land acquisition program in New Zealand's modern history, and if you live in Auckland, especially in flood-prone or slip-risk areas, you need to understand exactly what's happening here. Because the Category 3 buyout scheme isn't just reshaping communities like Piha, Muriwai, and Karakare, it's fundamentally changing how we think about property ownership and climate risk across New Zealand. See, this all started on January 27, 2023. The Auckland Anniversary Weekend floods dumped 307 millimeters of rain on Auckland in just 4 days. That's more than half the expected rainfall for an entire year. 4 people died. More than 2,000 slips paralyzed the city. Up to 10,000 properties flooded. And then, just weeks later, Cyclone Gabrielle hit, finishing what the floods had started. Fast forward 2 years, and Auckland Council has assessed 3,500 homes for future storm risk. Nearly 60% have been cleared. But the remaining 1,200 properties, they've been classified as Category 3, meaning the risk to life is so severe that no amount of property improvements or community infrastructure can fix it. The only solution? Abandon the property and take the council buyout. Now here's what makes this particularly brutal. Homeowners are offered 95% of their property's value as of January 26, 2023, the day before the first storm hit. That sounds fair, right? Except the offer is minus any insurance payouts, minus a 5% homeowner contribution, and if you're uninsured, you might only get 80% of the value. So over the next 12 minutes, we're breaking down exactly what's happening with Auckland's Category 3 buyout program, which communities are being hit hardest, and what this means for property owners across New Zealand as climate risk becomes the defining issue of the housing market. Right, so before we get into the details, let me tell you where this information comes from. Everything you're about to hear is sourced directly from Auckland Council's Recovery Office, official government announcements, and verified news reports from RNZ and the New Zealand Herald. Here's what we're covering today. First, we'll look at exactly what the Category 3 classification means and how the buyout process works. Then we'll break down which Auckland communities are being affected most severely. And finally, we'll talk about what this means for property values, insurance, and the broader housing market as climate risk reshapes New Zealand real estate. Let's dive in. So here's the situation. Following the extreme weather events in early 2023, the New Zealand government confirmed on June 1, 2023, that it would support a buyout program for Category 3 properties. Auckland Council and the government set up a $2 billion cost-sharing arrangement to fund storm recovery and resilience work, including buying out these high-risk homes. Now, what makes a property Category 3? It's not just that it flooded, it's that after detailed risk assessments, including desktop analysis and on-site inspections, the property has been determined to face an intolerable risk to life from future storm events. And critically, there's nothing that can be done on the property or in the wider community to reduce that risk to an acceptable level. Auckland Council's Group Recovery Manager, Mace Ward, described reaching this point as a massive, complex and emotional journey, especially for those waiting to find out what the future holds for their home and wider community. And he's not exaggerating. Over 3,500 properties registered for risk assessments. More than 30 organizations, including technical experts from other regions and even overseas, contributed to the process. Here's how the buyout actually works. Once your property is confirmed as Category 3, you're assigned a property advisor and a storm recovery navigator. The property advisor manages the buyout transaction, working with valuers, legal representatives, and handling all the paperwork. The Storm Recovery Navigator focuses on your well-being, connecting you with support services like claims resolution or mental health support. You're not forced to accept the buyout, it's voluntary. But if you opt in, here's the financial reality. The council offers 95% of your property's market value the day before the first storm. From that amount, they deduct any insurance payouts you've received, including from the Earthquake Commission. And you contribute 5% of the value as a homeowner contribution. So let's do the maths. If your property was valued at $1 million on January 26, 2023, and you received $200,000 from insurance, here's what you'd get. $1 million times 95% equals $950,000, minus the $200,000 insurance payout. That's $750,000, minus the 5% homeowner contribution of $50,000. Your final buyout, $700,000. And if you're uninsured, the council offers at least 80% of the value, meaning you're contributing up to 20%. They may increase that to 95% if you can demonstrate special circumstances that prevented you from having insurance, but that's at the council's discretion. For most homeowners, it takes between 3 and 6 months from the initial meeting to receiving a sale and purchase agreement. Some cases take longer, especially if there are complications with insurance claims or property valuations. Right, so let's talk about which Auckland communities are being hit hardest by this buyout program. The West Coast communities, Piha, Muriwai and Karakare, have been absolutely devastated. Muriwai alone has seen more than 60 homes demolished, deconstructed or relocated. Mike Hibbert, chairperson of the Muriwai Stickered Residents Group, described it as obviously pretty intense, watching families see their houses of 30 years being demolished. You're back there living it all over again, he said. Mace Ward from Auckland Council acknowledged that the removal of homes would have an enormous impact on the tight-knit community. And he's right, these aren't just properties being removed. These are entire neighbourhoods being reshaped as high-risk homes are cleared, and the council figures out what to do with the empty land. But it's not just the West Coast. Suburbs across Auckland have been affected. From as far north as Rodney, through central suburbs like Mount Eden and Epsom, across to the North Shore in areas like Milford, and down south to Mangere and even Pukekohe. In Ranui and Henderson on the west, flood reduction projects are underway around Clover Drive, with detailed investigations approved. In Mangere, 2 major flood reduction projects worth $53 million kicked off in early 2025, years ahead of typical timelines because of the urgency. Now here's where the numbers get really stark. As of April 2025, over 600 buyouts had been completed. More than 85% of the 3,537 homes that registered for risk assessments have received a final outcome. Close to 1,000 homes are confirmed as Category 3 and eligible for buyout, with the final tally expected to reach 1,200 when the categorization program wraps up. And what happens to these properties once the council buys them? Auckland Council now owns about 260 empty sections from cleared homes, with that number expected to hit 1,200 by the end of 2027. The council is working through what to do with this land, whether it's converted to playgrounds, community spaces, or even used for grazing sheep. The number one priority, according to Mace Ward, is safety, but also extracting value for Aucklanders. One particularly striking example, a rural property outside Puhoi that was valued at $2.15 million in the 2021 valuations dropped to just $50,000 in the latest valuations after the house was removed. That $50,000 valuation reflects the land's status as reserve land with limited use, essentially worthless for residential development. So what does this mean if you're an Auckland property owner or thinking about buying? First, the buyout scheme is closed. Registrations ended September 30th. If your property wasn't registered by then, you're not eligible, even if future storms cause damage. And existing Category 3 homeowners must sign their sale and purchase agreement by December 19, 2025. That government funding window is closing. Second, the human cost is significant. Mike Hibbert from Muriwai described watching homes demolished. When you're confronted with your house of, say, 30 years being deconstructed, you're back there living it all over again. Some homeowners are ending up in negative equity, still owing mortgage debt even after selling to the council. Third, if you're buying in Auckland, climate risk is now a critical factor. Before making an offer, especially in areas that flooded in 2023, ask, has this property been risk assessed? What category was it given? Are insurance claims resolved? Insurance payouts get deducted from buyout offers, so make absolutely sure all insurance matters are cleared before purchasing any storm-affected property. And here's the broader implication. This is New Zealand's first coordinated, government-funded buyout program of this scale. But a panel of experts recently recommended ending buyouts over a 20-year transition period for future extreme weather events. Climate Change Minister Simon Watts is considering the recommendations. The message is clear. Future governments may not fund large-scale buyouts. If you're buying in a high-risk area, you might be on your own when the next storm hits. Let me bring this all together. Auckland Council and the government are in the final stages of a $2 billion buyout program for 1,200 properties deemed to face an intolerable risk to life from future storms. Over 600 buyouts have been completed, with homes in Muriwai, Piha, Karakare, and suburbs across Auckland being demolished or relocated. Homeowners are offered 95% of their property's pre-storm value, minus insurance payouts and a 5% contribution. Uninsured homeowners receive 80% to 95% depending on special circumstances. Here's what you need to remember. This is the largest land acquisition program in New Zealand's modern history, and it's reshaping entire Auckland communities. If you own property in Auckland, especially in flood or slip-prone areas, climate risk is now a defining factor in your property's value. Future government support for storm-affected homeowners is uncertain, which means buyers need to price climate risk into their decisions. If you found this investigation valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to Kiwi Property Reports. We're tracking New Zealand's housing market with verified data and real analysis, covering the stories that matter to property owners and buyers. Drop a comment below. Have you been affected by Auckland's storm recovery? Do you know someone going through the Category 3 buyout process? Your insights help everyone understand what's really happening on the ground. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next report.